This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Christmas will be here before you know it, and you know what would make a great stocking stuffer for everybody in your family? Sterling Soap. From bar soap to shave soap, beard balm to lip balm, aftershaves and lotions, Sterling Soap has something for everyone on your list. Check out their seasonal soaps that will complement the scents of your home this holiday season. And they're more than just soap. They also have a full line of coffee straight from the Sterling Roastery. Find their full line of products at sterlingsoapcompany.com.
Looking for the perfect gift for that basketball fan in your life? Well, I've got a book for you. It's called Basketball Now. Newly updated for 2025, it spotlights 50 of the NBA's top stars. Think fast breaks, clutch threes, and buzzer beaters. Captured in stunning photography with sharp, readable analysis. From rising stars to veteran icons, this book is a courtside pass to the game right now. Wrap up a slam dunk this holiday season and pick up your copy of Basketball Now today at your favorite bookseller.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience, and today we bring you the story of the very first professional basketball game. Now, I am going to say this up front. We do not have full details of the game, so I am going to share what we know and then try to fill in the rest based on the context and history of the game at the time that the first pro game was played. The year was 1896, only 5 years after the game was invented. In the big scheme of things, that is incredibly fast for a game to go from invention to a professionally played game. But basketball spread like no other game had before. If you go all the way back to our very first episode, I recount the story of the invention of the game itself. And it was invented in Massachusetts by a Canadian physical education instructor by the name of James Naismith, who worked for the YMCA. And the YMCA could not have been a better place to invent the game. Basketball proved to be so popular with his students that the leadership of the YMCA ordered that all YMCA locations around the world start their own basketball programs. And this is why within a year, the game was being played on every continent. However, very quickly, the game became very physical, which is not what Naismith had in mind or intended when he invented the game. His purpose was to create a non-contact sport that required finesse and athletic skill. What he did not want was an indoor version of rugby, but that is what he got. As the game grew, some players realized that there was no difference between committing a touch foul versus an incredibly hard foul. In other words, if you just barely tapped a shooter on the arm during the shooting motion, it was logged as a foul against a defender. However, if the defender used all of his strength and shoved the shooter to the ground using both hands, it was still just considered a regular foul. So the thinking went, if you're going to foul a shooter, then go ahead and really foul the shooter to the point of injury if necessary. And this is where the rugby mentality took over. In some circles, basketball became an incredibly brutal game. Players started wearing elbow pads and knee pads just to protect themselves. In fact, if you find a photo of an old team from the late 1800s or early 1900s, you will notice that some of the players are wearing leather pads. The concept of the flagrant foul was still nearly 100 years in the future. At this point, some YMCA locations stopped hosting basketball games at all. It had simply become too rough and not the type of game that the YMCA wanted to be associated with. But the game had already been established and had a foothold in the northeastern part of the United States. So players began to play wherever they could. They would play in armories or ballrooms, in some cases even using a theater where the court was set up on the stage and all of the spectators sat on one side in their normal theater seats. And in 1896, the very first professional game was played. It was in Trenton, New Jersey, and the players organized themselves. They rented out the Masonic Hall in Trenton and charged admission to the game, and each player took home $15 from that very first game, except the captain, Fred Cooper, who took home an extra $1 for making all of the arrangements in the first place. And they wore something like a leotard with velvet shorts over them, and they were ready to play and to showcase a new move that was a surefire way to get a good basket. Cooper and his teammate Al Bratton came up with the idea that was revolutionary at the time in basketball. The two of them would run down court while passing the ball very quickly between them. They avoided the violation of traveling because they did not hold the ball long enough to establish a travel, but they also had the advantage of being able to bring the ball up quickly and take a good shot. Defenders were at their mercy as to how to stop such a play, if you even want to call it a play. But the fans loved it. They hooted and hollered at the creativity of the Trenton team to pull off something so wonderful. Today, even youth players can do this drill during training, but at the time it was thrilling, it was new. Like I have said in previous episodes, the things that we think of as standard in today's game were new innovations when somebody did it for the first time. And that's what the first decade of basketball was about. Trying new strategies and moves to gain an advantage over the opponent. And back to the Trenton team, they had another player on their team called Dutch Wolfhard, who was nicknamed the Blind Dribbler because he could dribble a basketball without having to look at the ball. Again, there are 5-year-olds who can dribble a basketball without having to look at the ball, but at the time, it was something completely new and daring. You see, back in the late 1800s, basketball technology was nothing like what it is today. Even an inexpensive ball will keep its round shape through a lot of wear and tear, but back in the 1800s, playing with a lopsided basketball was normal. The air bladder inside the leather cover could get lopsided very easily. Everyone just accepted that basketballs were going to be lopsided and you had to do your best. The other thing that basketballs had back in that era were laces. Think about what an American football looks like. There are laces on one side that the quarterback will use to get extra grip when passing the ball. Well, the original basketball also had laces on one side where they needed to close up the leather covering around the air bladder inside. Imagine dribbling a ball and the ball hits the court with the laces down. Well, that ball could bounce almost any direction. Dribbling a basketball in the late 1800s was a dangerous move because the bounce of the ball was so unpredictable. It was not uncommon to see a player completely lose control of the ball because it bounced with the laces down, or it was just so lopsided that losing control was inevitable. Well, Wolfhard was one of the few players who was able to master dribbling a basketball and maintain consistent control over it, or at least more consistent than anybody else. He was so good that he did not have to look at the ball. He was able to keep his eyes up in order to see where his teammates and the defenders were positioned on the court. At the time, it seemed like he was a magician. And no wonder these guys were able to collect $15 per game. They're putting on a real show. In today's money, that would be worth $576 in 2025. That's not bad for about 90 minutes of work. Unfortunately, we do not know what the score was for that first game. We only have tidbits of information that I've already shared because nobody at the time realized that they were making basketball history, which is normal. Most people do not realize they are making history in the moment in which they're making it. And this is so different from today. Today, we understand preserving the game for posterity. A typical NBA game is recorded with over 22 cameras from every conceivable angle, and every play is recorded with a timestamp. Every shot, every rebound, every steal, every timeout. I mean, everything is recorded with a timestamp showing how much time was on the game clock when the play occurred. Unfortunately, this didn't exist in the late 1800s, but the larger point of this story is that the game went from nothing to professional in about 5 years because the game was that popular. And that is an incredibly short window. I can't imagine trying to invent a brand new game today and expect that I could get paying customers to come watch that game be played professionally within 5 years. If I had a time machine, I think that I would like to go back and see this game. To be able to witness the very first professional game ever, well, for a basketball fan like myself, that would be incredibly special. Well, that is it for today. Join us next time when we share another story from basketball history. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcast, and check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find short historical posts, and I will also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care, and see you soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you got to do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you got to do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.